I grew up in a single parent home. My parents got divorced when I was about 4. From that moment is when the shift of abandonment, separation, losing a father figure, I experienced not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy enough. It took years and years knowing, okay, I had to learn who God was for myself to understand who I was. Your voice matters. The world will try to silence you. Your situation is gonna try to silence you, but your voice matters, and you have to advocate for yourself. You have to speak up for yourself and get the help that you need.
Nina Tima is a registered nurse, children's book author, and future psychiatric nurse practitioner from North Miami Senior High School, class of 2006.
What are the top 3 things currently today you'll be looking for in a man?
Leadership. He has to be able to lead the family. I would be considered a high-achieving, high-earning woman. You may make less than me, but what is the vision of our family? What is your 10-year plan? Confident. You have to be confident enough to know that my girl has 1,000,001 degrees and she's probably gonna get 500 more of them. What she's doing doesn't faze me. I'm gonna be there to support all her endeavors and vice versa. Generous man. I'm not talking about generosity in money. I'm talking about generosity in time. I'm talking about generosity in how they love you. I'm talking about generosity in how kind they are to you. Someone who's generous and kind, not because they're trying to get with me, but because they are genuinely like, I'm just a generous, kind man.
Now that you are single, how is dating in 2026?
Ooh.
Welcome back to Jules Legacy Enterprise Productions, where story connects generations. A conversation with a pioneer, a segment that celebrates the life and journey of North Miami Senior High School pioneers by bridging the past and the present to inspire the future. Behind every name, there is a story. Nina Tima, an alumnus from North Miami Senior High School, class of 06, who holds a bachelor's degree in nursing from Barry University, a master's degree in education from Florida Atlantic University, someone who struggled with self-esteem and also being bullied in high school. It is with great pleasure to have her here in the studio with us. Nina, 20 years later.
Hey. Hey, I'm excited to be here. I'm super excited. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Why did you choose nursing in high school?
I didn't choose nursing. Nursing chose me.
Okay.
So originally, when growing up, I always wanted to be, the first career that I wanted to be was, I wanted to be a lawyer. Although till this day, I still have struggles of wanting to just go back to law school for some strange reason.
Right.
But I wanted to be a lawyer, but I grew up in a very religious home. So when we talked about the 10 Commandments, they were like, thou shalt not lie. And I was like, dang, Mom, so if I become a lawyer, I'm gonna have to lie, which we know that is not true. So I kind of dispelled that, and then education was always the next step. I always wanted to be an educator. I used to be the girl that would line up my dolls and my teddy bears and play class at home because I wanted to be a teacher. My brother still to this day, he says, I'm surprised, like I saw you as a teacher. It wasn't until high school, 9th grade, I started at North Miami. I joined the HOSA program in the 10th grade. We all know Miss Z is an actual registered nurse.
Yes.
So when I went into the program, I knew by high school, growing up in a Haitian household, you had select job descriptions, like that you were only, these are your paths. And at the time, one of my brothers was actually pursuing his doctorate in psychology. So automatically my mom was like, you're gonna be a doctor too. Like my kids are gonna be doctors. That's just what it is. When I went into high school, I kind of did away with the whole education mindset. And I was like, I'm gonna become a doctor because that's just what I'm supposed to do. I'm gonna become a pediatrician. So when I started the HOSA program in 10th grade, I said, okay, that's just what I'm gonna do. Even my jumpsuit, it said Nina Tima and underneath it said pediatrician because that's what I was gonna do. And then in the 11th grade, going through the program, Ms. Z sat me down because she was our mentor before mentorship was a thing. So one thing that people don't know about Ms. Z in the HOSA program, like she took us on as like, when she saw something in you, she made sure she honed in and kind of mentored you into the program. So when I remember her pulling me to the side, and it was 11th grade, and now we're starting to think about what college we're going to, where we're going to see ourselves. I'm like, I'm going to go to pre-med. That's just what I'm going to do. And I remember her sitting me down, and she's like, so what do you plan on doing? And I was like, look at my jumpsuit. What are we talking about? I'm gonna go and become a pediatrician. I'm going to med school, and that's just what it is. And I remember her asking me this question, why? And I was like, what do you mean, why? It's the thing to do. That's what I'm gonna become. And she looked at me and she said, I think you should become a nurse. I didn't even know what a nurse was. I never knew anybody who was in the nursing field. At church, I didn't know anybody in my family, nothing. All I had medical-wise was my brother was studying to become a psychologist. So, and then what my mom said, you're gonna become a doctor. So I looked at her and I'm like, I don't even know what a nurse is. Like, I've been always told that I was gonna be a doctor and that's what I'm gonna live up to. And she was like, no, I see you becoming a nurse. So she began to mentor me and teach me what a nurse actually was. And it was at that moment that I began to wrestle. Now we wrestling in life. This was the beginning of my wrestle. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do it. Okay, whatever you say, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it. She was like, I see all the characteristics. She was like, I see you're compassionate. I see how much you care. Like, there's so much in you. She was like, I see it in you, but I didn't see it in myself. So when it came to that time for me to start applying for schools, one, I knew I couldn't go away for school. I'm the youngest of four. I'm the only girl. So you already know, my mom was like, you're not going nowhere. You need to be within my visual.
Right, vicinity.
So exactly. And Ms. Z had told me about Barry University. She was like, at the time, she was like, this is going to be the top nursing program. This is an amazing nursing program. I think you should apply for it. You're going to get in. And at that time, it was really difficult because they were very selective. Right. So I was like, all right, I'm going to apply to Barry University's nursing program, but I think I'm still going to be a doctor. So what I did was, on the side, I also applied to UM pre-meds program. So I had two separate applications out. I was like, if Barry doesn't work, of course, I'm going to be a doctor. That's just what I'm supposed to do. So I sent those applications out. I immediately got accepted to Barry University's nursing program, which was like, woo, okay, let's wait for UM, because if I get into there, I'm going to UM. I get my notification from UM and they deny me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? You denied me? How is that possible? But I ended up getting denied, and it was at that moment, and I know now it was literally God's divine intervention that he was like, that's not what you're gonna do. You're gonna become a nurse. So I ended up not going to pre-med school, and nursing called me. I didn't call it.
So Nina, take us through nursing school. How was it?
Nursing school was nursing school. Would I go through it again? Absolutely not. Although I'm in school right now, I would not go through it again. It was definitely difficult. I think it's harder now than it was probably back then, but it was definitely difficult. I was a full-time student. I worked part-time for the Miami Shores Library, so I kind of did both, which was an easy job just to have a little money in my pocket. But nursing school was definitely a challenge, but I was able to get through it.
How is Barry's education?
I loved my education then. This was 20 years ago.
Right.
Almost 20 years ago when I started in 2006. Their education at the time, it was smaller class sizes. I loved seeing the fact that the dean of the college was a Black woman. She was of Caribbean descent. There were doctors in the nursing program that were Haitian. There were doctors in the doctorate prepared nurses that were in the program, that led the program, that were from Jamaica. So when I saw the program, I saw me. So when I looked at them, I saw me. But it was, I didn't experience like large class sizes. It was pretty small at the time. We know nursing has skyrocketed now.
Of course.
But at the time, it was. I actually had a really good education, and I'm actually proud that I went there.
So what was the hardest part about nursing school?
The hardest part was learning. I've always been a good student. Like, I've always been that student. When you learn having to get into a field that you're not accustomed to. First of all, the transition from being in high school to being in college is completely different.
Correct.
But I think the hardest part was memorizing all these terms, learning not only about nursing and healthcare, but learning how to assess, how to prioritize. Like, this is all different. It's not just memorizing facts and things like that. You have to put yourself in a scenario and say, what are you going to do at this time? So I think that was the hardest shift for me.
And a lot of people that go through nursing school mention that you need possibly like the strongest support system. Will you say that you had that actually while you was in nursing school?
At the time, it was just me and my mother at home. So I think I created a community, and I think when you get into nursing school, I don't think people understand that, hey, you're a college student, but every program is a different world and a different beast. So I think when you go into the nursing program, you have to build your community in that program. So there are people that I graduated from in nursing school in 2010 that I'm still friends with till this day.
Nice.
Wow.
So you kind of you have to build your community because they understand what you're going through. We're taking the same exams. We're trying to graduate at the same time. We're trying to pass our boards together. So you have to build your community.
You graduated in 2010 from Barry. Where did you end up working at?
My first job was at Holy Cross Hospital in Fort Lauderdale.
How was that experience?
It was an amazing hospital. It is an amazing hospital. At the time, it was run by nuns. Now, it was privatized at the time, but it's no longer. But they had a nurse residency program, which was something that I thought was perfect because it took me from working a part-time job to actually going into the real world, and it helped me transition into becoming this autonomous nurse.
Nina, if you seem to be someone that's very vocal and you articulate yourself very well, right? If we could step back, because I was reading your bio, you mentioned that you were bullied at some point. What happened?
So we would have to step it back a little bit further.
Okay.
So I always tell people I grew up in a single parent home. My parents were actually divorced when I was about 4 or 5. So it was a traumatic experience that happened. So I went from being this pretty princess, the youngest girl. I have my dad at home. I have my brothers in the house. We're all eating dinner together till one day, now my dad is no longer there. So the backstory is my mom got radically saved. My parents were not married. So I was born out of wedlock, and they were just living la vida loca, living their life. But my mom got radically saved, and of course, at the time, my pastor was like, this can't happen. So instead of saying, Haitians don't really say, if it's not working, let's just go our separate ways, they were like, well, the options are get married or get married. So my parents got married. They already had a tumultuous relationship prior to, and they got married, and then marriage didn't fix the situation. So it continued to be rough, and then my parents got divorced when I was about 4. So from that moment is when the shift of abandonment, separation, losing a father figure. My dad left. I went from seeing my dad every single night to seeing my dad once a month when he was bringing the child support check. And when my dad left, my brothers are older, so they began to phase out. So now it's a home just with me and my mom. So going into school, we went from a 2-parent household to now a single-parent household, and of course, income is low. My mom did the best that she could with her traumatic experiences and trying to make the best of what she has and the resources she had. So I literally didn't have all the resources, and kids are mean. Kids are mean. So what ended up happening was at that time, I literally was made fun of in school, and this was before social media. So this was back when we had smash books and things like that, and it was written on paper. So that's when I experienced bullying. I experienced not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy enough in elementary school.
So that only happened in elementary school, nothing?
It happened in elementary school, a little bit of middle school, and then after that I kind of formulated my community of friends in high school, and then I kind of retreated. That's when I went into silent Nina. The Nina that's boisterous and talkity and all that stuff, chatty catty, was not who I was back then. I just kind of retreated and stayed silent.
So Nina, how did you build your self-esteem from that experience?
It took years. It took years and years of knowing, okay, that's a really, really good question, because at 37 years old, I'm just now building my self-confidence. It took 5 years, and to be honest, the honest, truthful answer is I had to learn who God was for myself to understand who I was. And that's where my confidence built, because God was like, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. I made you in my image. So guess what? If you know me, then you're going to know you.
You were bullied, and you struggle with self-esteem. Did that impact your relationships in anyhow?
Absolutely.
How?
Absolutely. So we're talking about a little girl who lost her father. She, like, not in a sense, but there's the separation of my dad out of the home, so she's not getting her father. All of the men in her life kind of left. So I dealt with abandonment. I dealt with trying to validate myself in other people. So what I did for years and years and years, I chased people, places, and things to fill a void that I had. So I didn't have the father figure. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel pretty enough. So guess what? I'm going to go chase what I feel like I can find. And of course, you're going to get into relationships with people who's going to gravitate towards your insecurities. They're going to gravitate towards your low self-esteem, and they're going to leech onto it. And then from there, of course, you get into relationships that don't serve you any purpose.
You mean leech on as far as taking advantage of?
So when I say leech on and taking advantage, it's not, it could be a plethora of things. Like, it could be taking advantage of the fact that Nina does not know who she is. She doesn't know her worth. So guess what? I can treat her out however I want to treat her, and she's still going to stick by. She's still going to stay. She doesn't know her value, so she's not going to walk away. Okay. She's going to continue to try to love me enough to hope that, you know, I'm going to do the things that she deserves. But because she doesn't know her worth, she's just searching for somebody to tell her something that she doesn't know about herself.
Did you know all of that walking into a marriage?
No. I got married at 23 years old. My frontal lobe wasn't even developed, to be honest. Like, my frontal lobe wasn't developed. I think I had insecurities, he had insecurities, and we had no business getting married at such a young age, because we didn't know what we know now. There are things about yourself, like, I'm chasing a father, I'm chasing love, I'm chasing value, like I said, in people, places, and things. So now I'm chasing a marriage because, one, I've never seen it. So I grew up in a single parent household. I saw my mom struggle. I saw my mom cry. I saw my mom badmouth my dad. I saw all these things, and I was like, I'm not gonna be like that. I'm not gonna be like that. So I'm gonna get into marriage. I'm gonna do all the things, and it's gonna fix all the problems. But honestly, marriage escalates. It brings up the insecurities that you have in you, because now you're with this person 24/7, and you're staring into a mirror. Their insecurities are becoming a visual of your insecurities.
So, Nina, you mentioned that your frontal lobe wasn't developed yet before you got married. So would you advise people that's in their mid-20s or even early 20s, like from like the age of 21 to 23, 24, to not get married and actually go through more life experiences?
I have mixed reservations about that. So I have mixed emotions. I can say I've met people who got married at such a young age because, and it worked. It worked because these were whole people. So I don't look at the age, I look at the maturity of the person. What is your life experience? If you've been through some stuff, how have you overcome those things? Because what you're gonna do is you're gonna enter into a situation and it's just gonna get escalated. So are you healed? Are you whole? You're not gonna be 100% perfect, but where those traumatic experiences that you have gone through in life, how have you overcome those? And are you able to be one with somebody? Because when you get married, you become one with that person. That is your life partner. You do everything together. Your decision making you're supposed to be looking in the same direction. And sometimes we get married with people and I'm looking over there and he's looking over there, and we're not actually looking in the same direction. We're just hoping that at some point we're going to meet in the middle, and that's not how it works.
Knowing what you know now, could you have saved that marriage?
Okay.
Or would it be different?
Could I have saved that marriage? It takes two people.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it at that.
All right. So what are you looking for now as far as you're 37 years old? What will you be looking forward to in your next relationship? Some of the things that you'll be looking forward to.
I'm not going to dispel my secrets. But I'm looking for fruit. The fruit of the spirit. When we talk about love, patience, joy, peace, long-suffering, self-control, I think that's a huge self-control. Where's my camera? Self-control, sweetheart. Because these are things that you have to have. Like, you don't have to be a perfect person, but there has to be some fruit. I'm looking for character.
Right.
Because we are two people that are going to be raising children. So I'm looking for character.
You graduated with a nursing degree, right? But you mentioned you always had a love for education at some point.
Yep.
Is that why you went to FAU and get a master's degree in education?
Yes. So I did. I've always had a love for education. I have a teaching spirit. Like, I taught Sunday school at times. Like,
right.
I have every job that I've obtained. I've always been in a training position. So teaching was always a natural gift for me. So yes, I ended up going to FAU and I got a master's with a focus on nursing education, with the thought that I was going to go into the avenue of becoming a professor.
So, Nina, to go back to the traumatic experience that you said that you went through, is that how you became the author of the book, Daddy, Am I Pretty?
Absolutely. Daddy, Am I Pretty it's my lived experience of battling low self-esteem and not feeling worthy. But this actually was birthed at the time that I was going through a divorce. So at the lowest time of my life, that's when this was birthed. So God used the traumatic experience and he was like, I'm going to use this for my glory. And that's how that was birthed.
You wrote 2 other books. Mommy, Am I Strong? I Am Strong. Mommy, I Am Strong. You wrote Yes, I Am. Can you walk us through these 3 stories, how you became an author to write these books?
So, as I said, Daddy, Am I Pretty is my lived experience, just not feeling pretty enough, not having that father figure, and just going through all of the emotional ties of just low self-esteem, because it leads to poor decision making. Absolutely. But Mommy, Am I Strong? I birthed that book. So Yes, I Am is an activity book that came in the middle, and it was more like, just something to put out there. It has journal prompts, it has activities in there just to get kids' minds moving, writing, different things like that. The educator in me.
Of course.
But Mommy, Am I Strong was birthed from mothers and fathers coming to me and saying, but what about my son? What about my son? And just looking at our black children, our black boys that are going out and the world is coming against them. Because the minute they're birthed and they check off black, there's already the disparity, the stigma, the pressure of them becoming men. So when I got those responses, like, I want something that has my son's face on it. I want something that, is going to encourage my son. One, I said, Daddy, Am I Pretty? It does help with little boys as well, because even men need to feel beautiful. Like, when I walked in, I was like, okay, black beautiful men, like I am that person. Like, they need to feel encouraged as well. But Mommy, Am I Strong is a book of affirmations, and it's a play on words where it's affirmations with all the different job titles that you can do. And the basis behind it is that no matter what society says, no matter what you do, no matter where life takes you, you can do anything that you put your mind to, because you have the inner strength to do it, regardless of what anybody says. So if you want to be a dancer, go ahead and dance.
Nice. Is that what led you to pursue your doctorate degree?
No, the Lord did. So I am very, as I mentioned, my brother is a psychologist. He does a lot of research. He's in Philly. He's a tenured professor at Temple University. And psychology and mental health was always something that was in my home based on either things that I've seen in my family or just kind of hearing the conversations with my brother and having conversations with him. I think as I have gotten older, mental health has been so prominent. It's like one of those things that if you want Nina to get riled up, start talking about mental health or Black maternal health. Like either of those will get me riled up. But I remember having a conversation with someone, and I was talking about how in our Haitian community, how mental health is still taboo, how it's still a disparity, how people aren't getting help because it's either you didn't pray enough or someone put witchcraft. There's no happy medium of you need help, and I think it's a little bit more than what you're thinking. And so I'm having this conversation, and the person responded back to me, so what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm telling you my opinions. That's about it. And I immediately heard the Lord say, you're going to do something about it.
Right.
And God put it in my spirit to go back and become a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
So Nina, if we have viewers that's going through mental health issues, what are some options that you would actually say that they can actually try?
Get therapy. I'm a avid believer in Jesus and therapy. Yes, I'm Jesus girl. I love the Lord, but I also have a therapist, and my therapist has gotten me through several seasons of my life, even this season of transitioning into walking into my purpose. So I would say, one, get the help. Like, it's okay to get help. It's okay to not be okay. There are days that you're not feeling well. You're not feeling. Something is off. Get the help. It's okay.
What is Black maternal health?
So Black maternal health.
You mentioned that it gets you riled up.
Yes.
And why?
Because Black women are dying at an alarming rate in childbirth, and we're not being listened to. So, yes, so that's a part of mental health as well. So you have Black women who are pregnant that are scared to go to hospitals. You have Black women that are pregnant that are like, am I going to be heard? Am I going to be listened to? So yes, that is a sensitive topic for me, especially as someone who they would consider to be advanced maternal age. Those are those things that I think about, because when I see a Black woman and their experience in hospitals and with the opposite counterpart who doesn't understand what it means to be a Black woman, who says, you're tough enough. You guys been through it all, so you're tough enough. You don't need the meds. Or if a Black woman makes a complaint like something is not right and they don't listen. So I get riled up about that.
Is that a conspiracy? Because I've always heard women said that not only society, but in the medical field, their pain tolerance is different, right? Is that a conspiracy, or that's like a real thing that does happen in the medical field?
That our pain tolerance is different, or that people
perceive it that to be that way. Absolutely. And the treatment is completely different.
Absolutely. I always say, as a nurse, as a healthcare professional, pain is what the patient perceives it to be. It's a subjective thing. You can't tell somebody what they are feeling. I don't care if I'm in the room laughing. I don't care if I'm in the room dancing. If my back hurts, my back hurts. Like, how I perceive, how you see me tolerating it, or it's different. But pain is whatever that patient says it is.
Nina, I have a question that as a law enforcement officer, we get this bad rap that officers are killing people, right? They get involved in all type of shootings, and that get blasted on the media all the time. And two of my sisters are nurses. And I'm pretty sure I read articles about doctors, medical malpractice, and also what happens in the medical field. But those stuff never get publicized. People don't talk about them. Is that something that's common where in the medical field, not per se specifically to the hospital you worked in, is that something that's very common where there's a lot of there's malpractice that does occur in the medical field based on either the person didn't listen or they were not paying attention, because it is a stressful job. You guys work long hours just like law enforcement do. But how common is that in the medical field?
I can't speak to the commonality of it, but I can speak to the fact that it does exist. That's why it's so important, and I'll shift it a little bit because that can be a little bit of a gray of a conversation.
Of course.
I'll shift it and talk about how it's important to advocate for yourself and advocate for your family. Like if you feel that you're not being listened to, if you feel that you're not being heard, advocate for yourself. Be that voice that stands up for yourself. I will say, not as I can only speak to as a Black woman. There are certain conditions that they don't present the same way. A lot of our medical textbooks are describing a middle-aged white man. So if you're talking about a heart attack, a Black woman, FYI, won't present with the left arm pain, the crushing chest pain. They might present with heartburn. They might present with stomach pain, and they're like, something is not right, and they could be having a full-blown heart attack. So I just talk about the importance of advocating for yourself, advocating for your family, stepping into the room. If something is not right, ask for a second opinion. If you feel in your gut that something is not right with me, I don't care what my labs say. I don't care what my blood pressure says. I'm telling you how I feel. Advocate for yourself.
But a lot of people that's that's from different countries and different cultures, they don't speak up, right? So far, you're the third person who came on this platform and started speaking about as far as how a lot of people feel as if they can only go to African-American doctors or someone who's from their culture that would understand their body. And a lot of people talks about as far as them having a doula instead, or having birth at home instead of going to the hospital and risking the chance of their child or themselves, right? To that, what would you say to that?
Representation does matter. So for me, I do only see Black doctors, and that's preference. That's because I understand that you understand my lived experience. Like, all of my providers are Black female providers. So even my therapist is Black, she's Christian, and she's Haitian. So guess what? She relates to me in different avenues, so she's going to hear and she can understand my lived experience. I feel when you see a provider that looks like you, it makes you a little bit more comfortable. But I've also encountered providers who look like me that still didn't listen. So it goes back to advocacy. If something is not right, or you don't feel it's not right, advocate for yourself.
So Nina, earlier you were talking about females in birth, right? What tips do you have for a man that have his female or his girlfriend or wife that's going through postpartum?
Ooh, that's a good question. And this is just my personal opinion, because I'm not a labor and delivery nurse. I don't do anything with that. And I'm also, I'm not a mother biologically. So I would say, be there for her. Listen, remove your emotions from the experience, because I think sometimes we internalize it. As a man, you internalize it and say, well, dang, you're being real rude and nasty to me, and I was here the whole 9 months. No, you have to understand that this woman is going through hormone changes. She's going through a new life. Maybe she's a first-time mom. Maybe now she has 2 under 2. Now she has multiple kids. The baby's crying. She's older. She's tired, but she's breastfeeding. She's being sucked. The life is being sucked out of her. And I think as men, we have to remember that it's not about you. Step back and say, hey, you know what? My wife she's going through something that's different. It may not look the same, but I think you just have to be the support system to her.
So Nina, I have a question. Do men go through postpartum too?
Absolutely. I believe it. They won't admit it. Life has changed. You went from being able to touch your wife whenever you wanted to now there's a baby suckling on her and taking all of her attention. You went from being able to just jet out the house to her saying, yo, I need you to stay a little bit longer because I need to take a shower. So I think men don't admit it, but there's a shift in hormones in them as well. There's a mental shift that happens when they become a father. I don't think we talk about it enough, but it happens.
Nina, I read this article that spoke about men there's more likely or the possibility of a man being or committing adultery or being, I'll rephrase that. I read an article where it says that the possibility of a man falling into infidelity is much higher when she's pregnant and after birth. Would you say that's a part of the postpartum process, or that's just
I think that's
men being men?
No, we would never say men are men because I have a traumatic experience. I was told men are men. No, we don't say that because there are phenomenal men out there. That's I can only go biblical with it. The only reason why a man is doing what they're doing or a woman is doing what they're, because they lack self-control. If you had self-control, you'd be able to know that your wife is going through pregnancy, your wife is going through postpartum. Like, there's a level of self-control that's lacking, and I don't know. I think I can't really speak to that because I think everyone's experience is different. I don't know your relationship. I don't be in nobody's bedroom, but that is not my business.
Would you say self-control or emotional intelligence?
I'm always go biblical with it. So self-control is a fruit of the spirit, but you do have to have emotional intelligence as well, because you have to understand that, okay, as a man, you are the leader of the household. And I speak from a Christian perspective. So if you are submitted to God and your wife is submitted unto you, like, there's a level of, like,
right,
you know.
If I may give my opinion about how my advice to men or how I perceive it. A woman is carrying your child to bring life into this world, a seed that you provide to her to multiply for you, right? Her body is going through a change that she has never experienced. And even if she wanted to explain it to you, but she can't. But as far as on the men aspect, men don't experience that, right? So there has to be a level of emotional intelligence.
Absolutely.
Not only to be grateful, but to be patient in the process, right? Those are decisions that you make. Okay, look, I want to have a child with this woman. So you have to be not only a leader, but you have to be mindful not only of your decision and consequences, because as a woman, now I just gave birth. I just went through this traumatic experience to give birth to a child. And then now you're going to abandon me while I'm in the process of healing.
Right.
To go to someone else who is in a better shape, who is in a better place, right? And someone who hasn't put their life on the line to produce anything for you. So to the men out there, I don't have any kids yet, but that is something that I've always wanted to say to men. Be mindful of that. You understand? Once that woman gives birth to your child, you have to be extremely patient, extremely mindful. Yes, extremely mindful of the state of mind that person is in.
Absolutely. And things shift, things change. Like, the person that you married, the person that you got with, the person that you saw at the mall, that you hollered at, that's not going to be the same person in 5 years. That's not going to be the same person when she gives birth. Her hormones are shifting. Wisdom starts instilling. She becomes a mother. Like, now she becomes mama bear. Like, now she's protecting this baby, but also trying to understand what her body looks like. And doing that, you also have to think about, this is a woman that's stepping in front of the mirror. She's looking at old pictures of herself. She's like, dang, I used to be this, that, and the other. The snapback is not snapping the way that she thought it was, because society says that the snapback is where it's at. You know, she's looking at the mirror and she's like, well, this is not what I look like, and I don't feel comfortable in my body.
But I have a question for you both. You guys are mentioning that the men need emotional intelligence, but I'm pretty sure there's a viewer out there that's asking, how do one obtain this emotional intelligence that you guys are speaking about?
Great question. Don't forget, there's when you talking about it, marriage. We're talking about marriage per se. We're not talking about, because whenever you're getting into a marriage is something that is godly instituted, right? So marriage, you can't say I'm going to get married and don't include God in it, because that's not something that was created by man.
Exactly.
God instituted marriage, right? So therefore, the men always lean to God. That's why you always have to build yourself. Your resources is always going to be God. That's what you fall back on. That means that's where your mental resilience comes from. That's when your emotional intelligence comes from. So from there, you must lean on God in order to be able to lead. That woman leads on you to be able to guide her, nurture her, and protect her, especially in the moment she's very vulnerable.
Absolutely. It takes the work. And I'm glad you said that. It does take that building of that relationship with God to be able to know, like, okay, what is my role as a man? What am I supposed to do? The Bible says, men, love your wife as Christ loved the church. Right. What did he do? He gave himself.
Of course.
Like, look at his characteristics. Do you match that? Because we're supposed to be Christ-like every day. We're supposed to build on that, and that should be the firm foundation.
I do have a question to ask you. For a man who feel the distance, because now she just gave birth. Once a woman gives birth, her mindset changes for that time, because now she's nurturing to a child, and men could feel neglected. So what advice would you give a man that's in that current state, that's either waiting for his wife to heal, that is confused if she still loves him, and that is going through the patient process? What advice would you give to him coming from a woman?
Communication is key. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You have to remember that this is a woman that her hormones are all over the place. If you tell her we're making chicken and she wanted beef, she's probably going to start crying because she wanted chicken. But her hormones are all over the place. So you have to be mindful of how you deliver the message. Like, hey, you know, is this something that you're like, do I need to get in more resources? What is she lacking? What does she need? Because it could be as easy as, if you asked her what she needed or what the issue was, she probably could say, I just want to sleep for an hour uninterrupted. Or I want to be able to take a shower every morning. And it's like, oh, okay, let's get some additional help. Like, hey, you know, I don't want to have to feed the baby and cook you breakfast. Like, where, you know, it's all about communication. And I think that's a lot of times what we lack. And that should be the beginning. Like, we should be working on that foundational of, like, how do we communicate? How do we express our needs and wants to each other, so that we're able to, in times like this, we're able to effectively communicate difficult conversations. Because I don't think, as people, we don't have that solid foundation of what communication looks like, so we don't know how to communicate difficult conversations. Of course. My husband should be able to tell me, hey, I know you had a baby, but you know, what is it? What can I do to alleviate the pressure? Because I could easily say, yo, like, we got the resources. Let's get a nanny. Let's get a night nurse. Like, there are certain things. Let's get a housekeeper. Can my mom come every morning? Like, those are those things but you have to have the conversation. If you don't have the conversation, you're not going to know.
Earlier, you mentioned society and black men. How do you think society perceive black men?
Not great.
Okay.
Why do you say that?
I think as a black woman who's gonna have a black son, I feel like there's this societal pressure for men to provide. So there's this pressure that you guys are thrown out into the world without preparation, without solid foundations. There are men that don't know what they're supposed to be doing, but the expectations on a black man is that you're supposed to go out there and do. So when you guys end up in the wrong side of the law, it's because you were thrown out and told I had to do what I had to do. I had to provide. I had to do this. I had to take care of my single mom. I had to take care of my sisters. I had to take care of the baby mama, the girlfriend. Everybody's expecting a lot, and there's black men who are getting sucked dry, and there's no foundation. They don't have the support that they need mentally, spiritually, emotionally to be able to step into an actual role of being a man.
But don't you think that problem comes from the absence of fathers being in their lives?
Absolutely. I think there is a lack of representation. There's a lack of looking at, do you have a person that you can look to and glean from? Like, do you have an example? There are lack of examples, and it's unfortunate.
I have a very controversial question for you. Now that you are single, how is dating in 2026?
Ooh, okay. Good question. And you asked me at the right time of my life, you know? So I know people will say, because I probably have said it probably a year ago, that the dating pool has piss in it. It actually doesn't. There are a lot of phenomenal men out there, but I think the perspective of dating is that as a Christian woman, the church culture teaches you that you're he who finds a wife finds favor and finds all these things, the church jargon. But I think what happens is we have this lens that every single person that we meet is going to be our husband. We're like, black man, he makes 6 figures, that's my husband, he loves the Lord, let me put the quotes. But no, I think for me, I've switched my mindset. And am I actively dating? Yes. Do I go on dates? Yes. But I have a different lens now. There are the right man, the person that God has for you is out there. You just kind of have to weed out. It's kind of like a gardener doing lawn work. They're pulling out the weeds in order for their lawn to grow and the flowers to grow. You got to do the work. But for me, when I approach dating, I look at it with a different lens. Not everybody is my husband. No, because I know I'm not going to be married to 101 people. Like, no, not everyone's going to be my husband. So what I look at is every person that I meet, we're going to create connections. I'm going to connect with every person, regardless if it's because they're funny, we connect on the Lord, we connect on the fact that I love to travel, whatever those connections are. Now, I'm also thinking, if this doesn't work, Nina, are you going to be okay? But that's because I'm secure in myself. Like, if this doesn't work, then I know it's because that's just not my person. But I also look at dating like, one, I'm collecting data. As we've been hearing everybody talk about, is collecting data, but I'm not just collecting data about the person. And I think that's what we miss. I'm also collecting data about myself. Was there anything about this conversation with this man that triggered something in me? Am I truly healed enough to even be doing this? Is there something about me? Am I really patient? Because I had to learn by meeting some of these men, because the men are menning. They're menning, no offense. But am I really patient? And I realized my cutoff game was quick. And I was like, ooh, the Lord was like, because you lack patience. You talk about the fruit of the Spirit, but little mama, you missing patience. You need to work on that. And I had to approach dating in a manner of like, now I'm meeting people, I'm connecting with people, but I'm also in the midst of connections learning about myself. And that's the important key that we're missing.
Nina, I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
A lot of men get confused to what women are looking for, because the perception online and social media shows one thing, and when you meet a successful individual like yourself, it's something completely different. To someone who is dating, right? Since you say the dating pool has piss in it, there's certain men who's not even involved in that. Right?
There's a lot of men.
So to a man that's not involved into that lifestyle, or that doesn't have an online profile, it's very low key, what are the top 3 things that currently today you'll be looking for in a man?
Leadership. He has to be able to lead the family. Like, I consider myself, I would be considered a high achieving, high earning woman. And that sometimes that scares people, because they're like, oh, look at her lifestyle. No, that's just me. That, God has been, graceful in my life. But leadership is important. You may make less than me, but what is the vision of our family? If you don't have, what does the Bible say? If there's no vision, like, the people will perish. Like, if you don't have a vision for our family, like, where do you see us going? Like, what is the vision? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see your 10-year, what is your 10-year plan? So leadership is very important. Confidence is very important, because for me, I'm still in that category of high achiever, high earner. You have to be confident enough to know that, yeah, my girl has 1,000,001 degrees and she's probably gonna get 500 more of them, but I am confident and secure in myself that what she's doing doesn't faze me. It doesn't demasculate me. It doesn't make me less than. I just know that I'm gonna be there to support all her endeavors and vice versa. And the third, what I'm looking for is a generous man. And let's reel it in, because I know people are gonna be like, a generous man. And I'm not talking about generosity in money. I'm talking about generosity in time. I'm talking about generosity in how they love you. I'm talking about generosity and how kind they are to you. Someone who's generous and kind, not because they're trying to get with me, but because they are genuinely like, I'm just a generous, kind man. So I am somebody that serves. I do a lot of mission trips. I serve my time. I go out and do medical mission trips. I don't get compensated for that, but I am giving my time. So I need somebody who also is able to say, I don't need anything in return to do something for somebody. And that's when I think generosity, that's what comes to mind.
The second part of the question is, what do you bring to the table?
Nina, what you bring to the table?
Should I be toxic and be like, I am the table? No.
That's exactly why I asked that question.
That's a very toxic response.
Because there's a lot of debate that goes on, and when you look at an individual who's the caliber of your success, right? And you are dating, right? Then a lot of men will want to know, what do you bring to the table? And a lot of women also, they get stuck on that question. They don't know how to answer that question, right? So personally, if you were to advise 3 things that you bring to the table, what would they be?
I'm a woman, so I'm a nurturer. I'm going to nurture. I don't know. I know marriage is in the cards for me, but I don't know if the Lord is going to have me have 1 child, 2 child, no children. But I'm going to nurture my family. I put it as this picture, that my husband is standing and I'm behind him. Now, if you look forward, you're not going to see me behind him, but you're going to know that there is a woman behind him that's always going to have his back. There's a woman behind him that no matter what, he's not going to fall, because I'm his backbone. I'm somebody that prays, and that's just innately in me. So I'm always going to be that spiritual prayer warrior that's going to be like, I'm your spiritual eye. Like, as a black man, because I love black men, as a black man, you're out there and you're constant, because you have to perform. You have to do the things. The expectation is on you. You are the leader of the home. So sometimes your eyes are so tunneled on the goal that you're not seeing what's around. So as a woman, I come in, I'm like, baby, that's not the right person. I already see, I don't think that's the route you should go, because I understand that I'm looking at it from a spiritual eye. Ooh, what else? So nurturer, someone who's going to have his backbone. Oh, and his prayer warrior.
Yes.
So, Nina, do you believe in gender roles?
Because I don't want to take out the trash. And I don't want to do nothing with my car. Like, dog. To a certain extent. And I think every home is different, and your roles are established based on whatever fits in your home. I personally would prefer my man to do all the manly stuff. I don't know. I know. I'm independent, but I ain't that independent. There are certain things that I don't want to do, but I also understand that giving birth, now I'm down. What if I have a C-section? I can't get up, I can't cook, but I understand that the roles may reverse, and there might be things that he has to do. He's probably gonna have to clean the house. He's probably gonna have to cook the meals because I'm down for a while. But I believe in them to a certain extent, and I think every household is different. Whatever works for y'all, and whatever works for me, works for me. And that's a conversation.
Nina, what now?
What now? Ooh, what now? I'm living la vida loca now. I think right now in life, it's just walking into my purpose, walking into whatever it is God has for me. God has taken me through a journey. And I think every morning I wake up and I say, what are we going to do, God? What do you have for me? I'm your vessel. Use me. Send me. What are we doing? Currently, I'm in school. I'm studying to become a psychiatric nurse practitioner. That is my goal. That is what the Lord has for me. And then after that, whatever God says, that's what I'm doing, to be honest.
Today you brought us a gift.
Yes.
I want you to show it to the audience and talk about it. And
yes. Is it?
Yes.
This is my first book, Daddy Am I Pretty? It's actually a story that goes through how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly.
Right.
But the basis is, it's kind of like an anti-bullying campaign. And honestly, all of my books are conversation starters. Anybody who purchases my book, I always say, please, parent, guardian, uncle, aunt, whoever you are in that child's life, read the book first, because this is a conversation starter. I want you to read the book first so that you can be able to have the conversation with your child. You can actually have you can ask the right questions. But yeah, it's anti-bullying, putting self-esteem at the forefront, letting children know their worth, letting them know that they are beautiful regardless of the fact, regardless of what anybody has said. They are fearfully and wonderfully made, and they are made in the image of God. So
if someone wants a copy of this book, where can they get it?
You can either go to my website, which is www.ninatima.com. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. I believe it's on Walmart, but wherever major books are sold.
Nina, to close off, if you could give advice to a young lady who's been through the things you've been through, where they went through a divorce or they're dealing with self-esteem issues, what advice would you give to them?
Your voice matters. The world will try to silence you. Your situation is going to try to silence you, but your voice matters, and you have to advocate for yourself. You have to speak up for yourself and get the help that you need. Find the community. If your mom is not helping you, that is not the person that you should be going to. If your friend is not helping you, that is not the person you need to go to. Find your community and seek community, because you can't do life alone. Because even God said Adam couldn't be alone. We weren't meant to do life alone. So life does happen, but don't allow your situation to silence you. Because I think for me, I was silenced for a very long time. So a lot of people didn't even know what I was going through, and they were like, what? You were going through what? So so don't allow your situation to silence you, and speak up.
Nina, we want to thank you so much for stopping by today. On behalf of the Jules Legacy brand and Jules Legacy Enterprise Productions, we want to say thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. Yes.
And at this time, we want to thank all our continuous sponsors: AZ Formal Wear, Gourmet Gathering, Chick-fil-A Miami Shores, and Comprehensive Health Center. Most importantly, we want to thank you, our viewers and listening, who are tuning in every week, and the Alumni Association. Thank you until next time.